Hi, guys. I hope you are well today, Friday, heading into the weekend, July 4th weekend, by the way. Very cool. All right. I know a lot of you are interested in commodities. I know I am. And it's something we talk about in Rebel Capitalist Pro all the time. And more specifically, I think a lot of you are interested in the price of oil. Even if you're not an investor, I think you need to be concerned or aware of what's happening with the price of oil because it's a large driver of consumer price inflation. Obviously, it's an input cost for many of the goods that we buy. Okay, so let's get into the article. This is from CNBC, and this is all about where to go. Here it is. All about ESG reporting. The title of the article is 3 Trends Putting Pressure on Companies to Begin ESG Reporting. And obviously, this is the movement towards, disclosing. And I don't know how the heck you would quantify this. That in and of itself is a complete mystery. But it's reporting and disclosing how much you affect the climate, let's say. And so a new report by NASDAQ, ESG advisory practice. Oh boy, that sounds like a that sounds like a Klaus administration if I've ever heard it, or a Klaus, what do they call it? A Klaus, the government always calls it a task force. It sounds like a Klaus and Bigglesworth task force, the ESG advisory practice. Anyway, they're reporting trends of 800 leading global companies, excuse me. The right time to start ESG reporting was yesterday, says Megan Tennety, senior lead ESG advisor at NASDAQ. Wow. Isn't it amazing that that's actually a job? That's like your only job? Wow. I'm not saying that they shouldn't report it. I mean, it's up to the free market to decide. But the fact that that's actually a full-time position is kind of just boggles the mind. Remember, guys, what's a measurement of wealth in society? How many goods and services you can produce efficiently? How many goods and services is Megan producing, being the lead ESG advisor at NASDAQ? Nada. And I'm not saying it's not an important position. I'm just saying that the fact that it's a 40-hour-a-week job is telling. Today, if you don't already have something in place, either from a regulatory or shareholder's perspective, you are at risk of being left behind. The risk is particularly acute for small and mid-cap business. Tennety says, we're seeing the dearth in disclosing among a lot of companies under 10 billion market cap. If these companies grow a little bit over the next couple of years, it could be rough waters, particularly with investors. So, and the reason we need to understand this, and it goes on. There is no longer a question about which way the trend is moving. According to NASDAQ, accounts or assets under management was 8.2 trillion as of the end of 2020, up 34%. So according to NASDAQ, ESG integrated strategies, assets under management, so the money, the capital that's being allocated to these ESG strategies was up by 34% from the end of 2018. So let me tell you what's not a component of an ESG strategy. That would be oil. So a lot of people, and again, this is something we talk about all the time in Rebel Capitalist Pro, they get really fixated on the demand side of the equation. And they say, oh my gosh, we're all moving to electric cars and solar energy, and we're all going to be driving around in a Tesla that just drives itself. It's on autopilot all the time, and it's just we never own a car again. It's just this electronic fleet of Ubers and Lyfts that are out there taking us from spot to spot. Cool. That may be true. But another question is what's going to happen to all the goods that we buy at Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and you just want to go to any local store, and the majority, I don't know if the majority, but a good portion of those products that you buy contain something that has to do with oil, especially if you considered the delivery process. And then you may say, oh, George, well, that's no big deal because we'll just have electric Teslas that will be driving us around, electric semi-Teslas. Okay, that's cool. But still, there's a lot of demand. But again, we're focusing on the demand side of the equation. My whole point is, even if demand goes down, if you have $0 effectively going into creating more supply of oil, that drives the price a lot higher, even if demand is going down. Because I can promise you, demand for oil over the next 10 years or 20 years, 30 years will not be zero. And it'll be a heck of a lot closer to what it is right now as we speak than it will be to zero. I'm not saying the demand doesn't go down. But if we're at 100% right now, to think that we would be at 80% or 50% even over the next 10 years, I think is completely unrealistic. Even though that may be a good objective, an admirable thing that we should strive for. Regardless, you're still going to have a ton of demand for oil. And if there is no more oil being produced because there's no capital going into future drilling, then that means one thing for the price. And I had, what's funny is I had a conversation with Chris McIntosh, and I believe it was when we were recording. I just did an interview with Chris on the Rebel Capitalist show, I think last week, and I believe we talked about this when we were recording. But if we didn't, the gist of it is, in commodities and in most things really, the cure for high prices are high prices. You guys know that. And the cure for low prices are low prices. But why is the cure for high prices high prices? Because at a certain point, when the price level goes up and up and up, there's more capital that comes into the market that increases the level of supply. And at a certain point, the supply outweighs the increased supply, and the supply in total outweighs the demand, brings the price back down. And then you have this equilibrium. But that involves more supply, you see. So going back to what we're talking about with oil, Chris had a hypothesis that may no longer apply to oil. The cure for high prices might not be high prices, because there won't be any capital going into the creation of additional supply. So it's an interesting concept. I'm not saying go out there and buy oil. As you guys know, I think that oil is cheap, historically speaking, adjusted for inflation, when it gets below 30 a barrel. And when it gets above 80 a barrel, It's expensive. And you guys know well that I bought a ton of oil producers back in March of 2020 when oil was below 30 a barrel. So what am I going to do when oil is over 80 a barrel? I'm going to start selling. Does that mean that I'm bearish on the price of oil? Nope, not at all. Not at all. I could be wildly bullish on the price of oil, but I'll still start selling. Why? Because those are my rules. That's the strategy. And in my opinion, being a good investor does not start with whether or not you make money. It starts with how well you play the game. Remember, it all goes back to blackjack. And then if you're sitting there at the blackjack table, the measurement of how well you played is not what your stack of chips may be. You know, tall, low. It's not, bottom line, it's not how much money you made or lost. It's how well you played each hand. Did you play each hand perfectly based on the probabilities and based on the strategy? Because you know the strategy has a mathematical edge, and therefore the law of large numbers is on your side. So I would rather lose money at the blackjack table and know that I played every hand correctly based on the probabilities and my strategy than to win money at the blackjack table knowing that I did not play every hand based on the strategy and the mathematical probabilities. Because that's my edge. You see? So again, I'm not saying that you should do this. I'm telling you what I do, and I'm telling you my rationale. So hopefully it can help you and make better decisions, make more money, regardless of what your strategy is. And so what will be interesting is when oil starts getting over 80 a barrel, if assuming, you know, it gets there, and I think we're getting pretty darn close. I was listening to Macro Voices the other night, and yeah, Dusty, it's saying it's right at 77 right now. Thanks for the heads up there, Dusty. So, you know, what do I do? And I think I'm going to start using options for the first time to scale out of a position by selling calls. And I'll kind of, obviously I'll keep you guys posted so you can follow along, and I'll probably do a whiteboard video on it as well. But that's how I plan on scaling out of the position. We'll see how it works. Assuming that we get up above 80, you know, I'm not going to sell right at the you know, the second we get to 80, but you know, once we get up 85, 90, you know, then I know it's going to be time for me to start selling those calls, if that's the strategy that I employ to scale out of the position. Because, you know, even if the strike price isn't reached, I don't care. And even if oil goes back down under 80, well, I don't care. Remember, because my whole strategy is I'm only going to sell when it's over 80, and in the interim, I'm happy holding it. I mean, I've only held it for, geez, I mean, what, a year and 3 or 4 months? I mean, I was planning on holding it 5, 10 years, no problem. No problem. Maybe not 5 or 10, probably 3 or 4. Or 3 to 5 years before, you know, you think it's getting up over or 80 or so. I was no hesitation whatsoever. I was planning on holding it that long. So I've held it. It's been a lot faster rise to 80 than I thought it would be. Covered call is a good idea. Yeah, exactly. So if the stock goes back down under, or excuse me, if oil, and again, I'm not trading physical barrels of oil. I'm talking about the producers. If you know, they go down, if oil goes down under a certain level, then I'm fine. I'm just keeping my position, and I'm getting paid an income stream. Basically, it's like a rental property. You're getting paid to sell those covered calls into the market. And then if the strike price is hit, great, no problem, because that's I was going to sell over 80 a barrel anyway. See, so we'll see how it goes. I'm obviously I'm a newbie to say the least when it comes to options. So hopefully I can add some value by taking you guys along with me through the experience and all the mistakes that I'm sure I'll make, and hopefully some of the things that I get right. So we'll see how it goes. But the main point here that I wanted to get across is, don't just look at the demand side of the equation, especially with commodities. Let's look at the supply side of the equation and try to determine how this ESG movement is going to negatively impact the supply side of probably a lot of commodities. Unfortunately, a lot of goods and services in general, and therefore what that does to prices. While understanding that it's not just about predicting a price move, it's about sticking with your strategy and playing by probabilities. So you have a mathematical edge, and over the long term, you're going to come out a winner. And you know, it was great. I just absolutely loved my conversation with Chris Cole that I had on the Rebel Capitalist show, and because I'm such a huge fan of Chris's work. But one of the things that was really cool for me to hear is that Chris was a big blackjack guy as well, and I think blackjack really shaped the way he sees the world in a similar way that blackjack shaped the way I see the world. So to have that in common, that was really, really cool. But all right, let's do some shout outs for this Friday. We got the angriest puppy in the house, El Chomio Robert Jolife. I don't know if hopefully I'm getting that right, Robert. Quantitative Disease, Thomas. Quantitative Disease, I think you were at Rebel Capitalist Live. I had so many people at Rebel Capitalist Live come up to me and they said, hey, and then they told me their username or whatever you call this thing. I forgot what you call. And I'm like, oh yeah, because if they would have said, hey, my name is Steve or whatever, I would have known them. But they say, hey, my name's the angriest puppy, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember you from the live streams for sure, because I see those the usernames all the time. Okay, we got KC Sunshine, Thomas Love, Jackie Alley 2, Steve Z, Mexi Mike, John Midnight, Jeremy Stevens, Tits McGee. Oh, Marvin Mora, thank you very much, Marvin, for the super chat. You guys really, you don't have to do that, but it's much appreciated. Swan Cambray, Wayne Smith, Bullant Osman, David Lemmer, Mark Tur, S, just simply S. That's it. All right, who else we got? Oh, Russian name. I wish I could pronounce that. I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'm sorry, my friend. It looks like Russian. And then we've got GG Petty. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I will see you on the next video, and make sure you check out rebelcapitalistlive.com. We've got a new trailer up there that I might be posting on this channel later on this afternoon. But check out Rebel Capitalist Live, and we'll see you on the next video.